The subject of today's video has already been on my agenda for several weeks, but it's an unfortunate coincidence that I didn't get to it until after the passing of one of its lead actors, Gene Hackman. I genuinely wish I could be introducing it under happier circumstances. While Hackman had a long and productive film career, my own experience with his work is primarily limited to his portrayal of Lex Luthor opposite Christopher Reeve's Superman, as well as the blind hermit in Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, and the head of the family in The Royal Tenenbaums. Fine performances that I'd be happy to revisit in due time, but on this occasion I feel it more appropriate to explore one of his more serious roles. And so, without further ado, let us take a brief look at Crimson Tide. The story begins with news reports of Russian insurgents seizing control of a nuclear missile base with intentions to strike at the U.S. In response, the USS Alabama, a nuclear submarine helmed by Captain Ramsey and newly transferred Lieutenant Commander Hunter, is sent to patrol the waters nearby and, if necessary, launch a preemptive strike on the insurgents. The crew receives an order to attack, but a brief skirmish with an enemy vessel damages communications before a follow-up message comes through. Ramsey decides to proceed with the standing order, but Hunter refuses to comply until they can confirm the contents of the second message. Both men refuse to back down, and their personal division soon spreads to their crew. Tensions rise, and loyalties are tested, while Russian missiles are being readied, and the crew of the Alabama have a grave decision to make with the outbreak of nuclear war on the line. Ooh. This was a damn good movie. Production is solid all around. Good sets and props, compelling performances from a talented cast, including a future King of Gondor, amusingly enough, a powerful soundtrack, and a tense, gripping story with tight pacing. The core foundation of this movie, what makes the story so gripping, is the presentation of a conflict with no clear answer. It's standard in most action movies to have a clear definition of the hero, the villain, and what needs to be done to stop a threat. Crimson Tide, in contrast, doesn't offer that luxury. There is a clear and present danger, to be sure, but both of the possible responses are hazardous in their own rights. Continue the ordered attack on hostile insurgents at the risk of starting a nuclear war, or delay the attack until new orders are confirmed at the risk of your own homeland being struck. Having seen the conclusion, it's easy to decide which option is correct. But for most of the runtime, the movie leaves the matter open and asks the viewers to consider the choices themselves. How would you make a difficult decision under a brief time limit when lives are on the line and you lack critical information? It wouldn't have been an easy decision for me either when I was alive. Then again, I was never so concerned with saving lives on the battlefield as I was with ending as many of them as humanly. It helps that we see the dilemma play out through the eyes of two legends of cinema. Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington are both masters of their craft and superb in their portrayal of two men, Captain Ramsey and Lieutenant Commander Hunter, with two different backgrounds and philosophies who inevitably find themselves at odds with each other. And what makes their conflict so interesting is the examination of their individual viewpoints from both perspectives. Ramsey is a straightforward man who favors swift action based only on the facts as they are confirmed. Hunter, in contrast, is more deliberate in his actions, and he accounts for as many factors as possible when making his decisions. Both approaches have their advantages. Ramsey's hard-nosed adherence to established protocols, experience, and the letter of the law give him the confidence to act decisively in ambiguous situations, while Hunter's willingness to account for multiple outcomes allows him to make the choice that poses minimal risk. But as the clock ticks down and tensions rise, the potential disadvantages become clear as well. Ramsey grows more hostile in his desperation to execute his standing orders that carry a serious risk of initiating World War III, while Hunter's caution splinters the loyalty of the submarine crew as a whole and leaves his own homeland potentially vulnerable to an enemy attack. It's an excellent study of the way two logical arguments can break down in an environment of prolonged danger. It's also important to note how the two men conduct themselves before, during, and after the conflict. As a former warlord myself, I certainly had my own methods for settling dissenting opinions. Unfortunately, they were the sort of methods that get you sentenced to solitary confinement in a windowless vault for an interminable number of years. But I digress. Ramsey and Hunter come from different backgrounds, but they're respectful and cordial in their initial meeting and at the beginning of their patrol. And when their differences in opinion emerge, they're able to settle those differences through open discussion in the privacy of the captain's quarters, a manner that preserves the cohesion of the crew and keeps both men focused on their mutual goal. When discourse finally breaks down, we understand the rationale behind each party's decision and why they believe so strongly in their interpretation of protocol. And despite their hostility at the peak of the conflict, once that conflict is resolved, both men are able to restore their mutual understanding and respect for one another. There is a great deal to take away from this movie, on a number of different levels. Being a superb piece of cinema, led by two major stars, it comes as no surprise that Crimson Tide is easy to find on the usual formats: Blu-ray, DVD, and even VHS. There's even an extended edition out there, though I have yet to see it. Whichever version you find, it makes a worthy addition to your shelf. It's serious, it's tense, it's gripping, and it really makes you think. And it's also one example among many to illustrate what made Gene Hackman a genuine star. Rest in peace, Captain Ramsey. We salute you. Thank you for joining me in this brief look into the archives of my vault. If this story interests you, please feel free to like this video and to comment on what you enjoy about it. And if you would be kind enough to share this video, it will not only help my channel to grow, which I appreciate, but it will bring more attention to these older or lesser known works.